Today I wanted to talk about 3 strategies which I'm going to be using into 2024 to take control of my media consumption. Let's get into it. So as you know, with streaming services and the subscription economy, the world's kind of run amok. It's pretty much impossible to purchase and own digital media anymore. If you buy anything online, it pretty much has something baked into it where you aren't really able to own the file, and at any time a company can just take it back, as we've seen with a couple of cases recently, including Sony. So it's more important than ever to find ways to control your physical media, because if you buy it online through companies, it's not yours and it's not guaranteed that it will even remain in your possession. So getting into the 3 strategies that I'm going to be using in the new year to help combat this, with number 1. This year, I'm going to start digitizing my physical media for longevity. So a little while ago, I made a video on why I choose to keep VHS tapes as my physical media in 2023. Basically, for me, it was for nostalgia, and I wasn't really thinking about keeping the files and keeping the footage for a very long time, any sort of preservation of the material. It was more so just, we're here for a good time, not a long time, and enjoy it. People were telling me in the comments that I was making a mistake with that. If the VCR broke or the tapes would degrade, you're going to eventually not be able to watch those movies. And I was aware of that, and I knew they were right, but I was just enjoying it, and it didn't cost me very much money to get into it. It was more just a hobby than any sort of imperative of being able to collect this media and ensure that I had it for a long time. But recently, my VCR actually died on me. It died on me actually like 2 nights ago. I was trying to watch Above the Law and it died. I just couldn't muster up playing Steven Seagal, which I disagree with. And I'm going to go look for another VCR soon. I know that Value Village usually is teeming with them, but it got me thinking about backing up my media. I did this a long time ago before I got rid of all of my DVDs. I picked a few that were my favorites and I ripped them to my computer and put them on a hard drive. I still have access to those even though I don't even have a DVD player anymore. And no matter what computer I have, as long as I hold on to those files and have VLC, I'm able to watch them. I like that a lot, and I want to have a little bit more of that in 2024. So this year, I'm going to take some of your advice and I'm going to buy some DVDs or maybe even Blu-rays, and I'm going to back them up onto a hard drive. I also have a small projector, which I like to watch movies on occasionally too, and it will make it a lot easier to view rather than hooking up the VHS player to it to just use a memory stick. So for movies, that's something I'm definitely going to do. I also have like 30 to 40 CDs left from the time when I used to collect them. I used to have a lot more than that. And I think I'm going to actually rip them on my computer now as well in some sort of lossless format, and again, make sure that they're on a hard drive backed up. Which brings me to the second way which I'm going to take control of my media consumption this year, and that is trying more single-use devices. And the specific example for this is an iPod. Okay, so this is my original iPod Nano, which is from, I think, like 2007. I think it's the 3rd generation iPod Nano. It's 8 gigabytes. People actually modify these old iPods. This one specifically isn't that good because I think a lot of the stuff is actually like glued onto the case or the board or whatever it is, and you're not really able to do too much as far as expanding it or changing the battery out even, I don't think. So this one's not the best, but what I was able to do actually was I was able to pull all my old music off of this, which was I think like 1,200 songs. It wasn't full albums of anything because with 8 gigabytes, you weren't really able to store too much on here. You couldn't have like, I don't know, 200 albums, the entire thing. You had to pick your songs, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. And it's kind of like Spotify nowadays in the sense that very few people listen to albums all the way through, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So I pulled all my songs off of this just a couple days ago, and my girlfriend actually gifted me her old iPod Classic. This thing is highly modifiable. A lot of people put new batteries in them. They even switch the hard drive to make them even bigger. And I mean, I don't think I'm going to do that right away. The battery life actually was surprisingly decent for something that is, I don't even know, 17, 18 years old. But what's really good for me is the memory, because this thing has 160 gigabytes of space. Compared to my 8 gigabytes of space, I'm kind of okay with it. I'm not really planning any upgrades on this thing right now. I'm just going to enjoy it the way it is. But I mean, there's always a possibility, I guess, this year that I might do something with it. What I really like about this thing is it still fully functions with Apple Music. So you're able to go onto the music app on your computer. I'm able to rip all of my albums with lossless compression onto Apple Music, and then I'm able to upload it, just like the old days, directly onto this iPod. It's kind of like a dumb technology with me in the sense that it only does what it's supposed to do. This is kind of why I use the Punkt MPO2 dumb phone as well, because there's not all the other distractions that come along with having a smart device. You have a phone that just does texting and calling, and it doesn't distract you any more than when a text or a call comes through. That's all it wants from you. I like the iPod for the same reason. It's still a really intuitive device. It works really well, and it does iPod really well. And if you're not using Spotify, you don't really need connectivity at all times. Uploading music from the discs that I own to my computer in lossless compression and then putting them on this device is a more intentional way of consuming music, and I'm actually super down with it. And if you don't have an old iPod anymore, you can actually do this with a lot of MP3 players that are actually available today, still on Amazon. I've heard actually really good things about the SanDisk Clip Jam device, which is only like $35 Canadian for the base one. And I think it also has a deal with Audible where you're able to put your audiobooks on there and podcasts maybe as well. So that's actually also a really interesting device too. But I'm going to be sticking with my iPod for now. Okay, and moving on to the third thing that I'm going to do this year to take back more control of my content consumption is I'm going to be canceling all streaming services. Now, I'd already got rid of all of my video streaming services. I didn't have Amazon Prime anymore. I got rid of Netflix. Well, I actually lost Netflix, which was one of the topics of one of my videos. And the only thing I was still holding on to was Spotify. I had got rid of Audible as well, and I just had Spotify. By the time that this video is uploaded, I will have deleted Spotify. I am on the cusp of doing it. I'm probably going to do it right as soon as this video is done. Now, I want to do that for a lot of different reasons, and there's so many that I'm actually probably going to just make another video on why I'm deleting Spotify in general and maybe why you should consider doing it as well. But just to summarize quickly, they don't pay artists well, the music's not the best quality, and I just don't want to be on this subscription economy. I just don't want to be paying all these little subscriptions, just kind of trickling money out of my wallet all the time, even when I'm not using it. It's just kind of another thing where we're given all the music in the entire world at once. And I don't really need all the music in the world at once. I just want what I like, and I'll just get it occasionally, and I'll just build that collection slowly through buying discs, uploading them to my iPod, or saving them onto a hard drive and playing them that way, or listening to them on record. There's a lot of albums which are also just not available on Spotify because they're either too obscure or the artist didn't make a deal with them. Friends in Low Places, not available on Spotify. Annie Neil Young, not available on Spotify. I have this super good Canadian sea shanty type album here. Let me get it. This band is called Ryan's Fancy. The album is called Newfoundland Drinking Songs. This is not available on Spotify, and it is sick. This band was also like pretty big in the Canadian folk scene in the 70s or 80s. I can't remember when they're from. So it's kind of like a bummer that they don't have this on Spotify. They have maybe one other album of theirs on Spotify, but it's not this one. And this has a real ripper of a song.
Up the hill and turn down the rocky road and all the way to Dublin, Rock.
So ultimately, guys, there's a lot of reasons why you might not want to keep something like Spotify or any streaming service. The number one thing is that you just don't own the content and you have really no control over what content they keep or they give to you. Netflix is going to make whatever they think you want. It's probably not going to be what you want. And then if there is a show that you like, if the deal's up with them, they get rid of it. Or if they decide that they just don't want to have it anymore, they get rid of it. If they decide they don't want to pay royalties anymore, they get rid of it. And they also can jack the prices up whenever they want, and you really have no control over it. So it's important to me to even have access to way less media catalog just by collecting my own and maybe backing it up on a hard drive so I have permanent access to a much smaller catalog of stuff, but I can guarantee that I have access to it whenever I want. And it's a bit more intentional. I don't have access to, any movie that just came out or every movie ever, if you got any streaming service, I guess, or just like every Marvel movie or complete Simpsons or whatever it is. To take the Simpsons example, if I like a certain season, then I'll just go pick up that season on DVD. I'll make sure I back it up. And then I have that favorite season. And I'm just going to be more intentional with the consumption that I do this coming year. So there you go, guys. 3 things that I'm going to be doing this year in order to take more control over my content consumption. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section. Do you agree with me? Are you doing any of these things already? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
There ain't no